1 tree per 100 feet. We're proposing 1 tree per 50 feet. So a 100-foot lot would require 2 trees at a 100-foot minimum. A 100-foot lot would require 3 trees at a 50-foot minimum spacing difference. So at average cost of $250 a tree for the tree and the planting and the installation, that would increase the cost of the project $250. A 400-foot lot would require right now 5 trees. A 50-foot minimum would increase that to 9 trees, which is 4 more trees at $1,050. I don't think that's a lot to ask of a large project to help beautify Tullahoma and increase the tree canopy and the enjoyment of all citizens for a long, long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the tree ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I'm Ralph Graham, 205 Lakewood Drive, Tullahoma, Tennessee. I'd like to speak about 2 things. One is the proposed spacing of the trees. On the website right now, there are over 40 trees that would, if spaced at 50 feet apart, not touch ever. So this is not a consideration. This is not a concern for us. Number 2 is I looked at the 7-Eleven development that's just coming in now. It's at a capital investment of about $829,000. And if we implemented this going from 100 feet to 50 feet, it would add a net cost of $1,900, which is 0.2% of the capital investment. So I submit that this kind of change would not be adverse to new businesses. It is in the round-off. It is truly small. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else on the tree ordinance?
Hi, I'm Ashley Shockley. I live at 1104 Pickett Drive. First, I want to say Tullahoma is so lucky to have Ralph Graham as the chair of our tree board. He knows so much, and we're just blessed to have him because Lord knows we need more trees. I'm just going to spit out a couple of facts because I think everybody likes facts. This whole talk about money around trees, yeah, money kind of makes the world go round at this point. But here's how we can save money. When you have a tree canopy within your city, you lower your temperatures, your peak summer temperatures. So what does that mean? That means less electricity, less air conditioning. Your bill's going to go down. And I can attest to that. We chose my neighborhood that we live in because of the trees. And y'all should see my electric bill in the summer. It's pretty decent living in an old house, but we have very old trees. And interesting, this isn't really a fact, I'm just going to throw this in there. In the 90s, I won what I like most about Tullahoma. And what did I win it on? The trees. Now, could we say that today? Our tree canopy has greatly diminished, and we want to help raise it up. There's other ways that it saves money as well. Animal control, for example. All these new developments coming in, a lot of those critters are going to end up in your drain pipes, your attic, underneath your car. But when you have an appropriate tree canopy, those animals can escape to the tree. So we're talking like squirrels, bats, birds, you know. Let's see. It's also been proven to show whenever we have a proper tree canopy, it strengthens the bond of neighbors. Now, I don't know about y'all, but for me, that's probably because we're out there complaining about how many leaves we need to rake up. But it's still, you're getting out there talking to your neighbor. Stormwater issues. We all know we deal with that, but the more trees you have, the less of an issue it will become over time. Think about it. If you got a dandelion root compared to a 50-year-old tree root, what's going to take up more water? Also, a very interesting fact is that tree canopies actually have been proven to improve people's mental health. And what does that do? It lowers your lowers your medical bills. So there's a lot of ways that trees can save money. A good example would be Lowe's. If you look at their parking lot, you notice a lot of the cars, instead of parking up close, they'll park underneath the trees for shade. We all know what it's like to get into a hot car and touch that steering wheel and but you don't do that when you have a proper tree canopy. It's more attractive, it's going to get more businesses to come in. I mean, would you rather go to a pretty town, or would you rather go to a town that's kind of lacking? So there's just so many positive things and ways to save money and ways our community can come together over trees. And I just wanted to share some of those things, because I think sometimes it's easy to get stuck in the details and the nitty-gritty, and when we look at the positives and what it can do for our community, sometimes I think we just need to see that. So.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Mark Shemp. I live at 204 East Lauderdale Street, and for the previous 36 or so year, we lived at 215 North Washington Street. We chose Tullahoma for its beauty, for what it had to offer to our community, and for the outlook of our city leaders in moving us forward towards things. I will agree with the comments made by the previous three speakers, and will not go over those again. But I also want to thank the board for considering this today, the Planning Commission for having processed some of it through. We're in disagreement on some issues, but we're really pleased that it's moving forward. And this is a chance for us to be proactive. One of the things in the 2040 plans, and when you go through it, as referenced before, is that we're having to come in behind the fact. And we see now the wisdom. If we had done it a little differently, we wouldn't be faced with how we're going to take down from North Jackson going north from there, and how are we going to improve the appearance of it, how are we going to improve the aesthetics for our community and for the visitors that come in. So I appreciate it. I like your support for it. We certainly believe a tree over 50 feet is not too much to ask. We appreciate the fact that all costs are costs, and you got to shave every one you can. But this is a small investment for the community's future. Your consideration would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there's no one else, I would just make one comment as a reminder that this ordinance does only apply to commercial and industrial sites. It does not apply to residential sites. Just a reminder. Okay, if there's no other comments on the tree ordinance, we'll open the public hearing now for the City of Tullahoma's proposed list of projects for the use of the $5,802,232 in American Rescue Plan Act funding in accordance with the U.S. Treasury guidelines. If you care to speak on that, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Please restrict your comments to 3 minutes if possible.
You think I talk a lot, right? My name's Mike Stanton. I live at 311 Heights Avenue. And greetings to all of you. I'm chairman of the TUA board, and that was by rotation. Okay, that wasn't necessarily by a pure election. Okay, really doesn't matter. I just thought I'd mention it. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of TUA and our ratepayers. Also, thank you for your service to our community, to represent and serve our citizens. You make many sacrifices. We appreciate each of you. Our neighbors to the east in Winchester, less than 2 weeks ago, on April the 12th, approved a $2.4 million from the American Rescue Fund package for a major sewer project geared to promote industrial development and accommodate residential expansion. And that's precisely what we are trying to do with your support. 2 weeks ago, as you well remember, our president, Mr. Skelton, requested $1 million share, which is less than 20% of the $5.8 million American Rescue funding package, which you're trying to disseminate. Similar to Winchester, we need wastewater funding to support growth in Tullahoma. We certainly would appreciate your support in this endeavor. I know you realize that with population growth, sales tax, and property tax revenue increases. Thank you. Mr. Cope?
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for the opportunity.
Name and address.
Steve Cope, 110 Courtside Lane, Tullahoma, Tennessee.
Thank you.
You know, I spent 21 years sitting where you're sitting, and I understand the issues that come up. I've seen the list of projects that you have put together and certainly understand why all of those are listed. City is often short of funds, and when you get an opportunity for a windfall, you take that opportunity to do a lot of different projects. But sitting on this board for 21 years, I was also the liaison to the Tullahoma Utilities Board for more than 12 years. And during those years in the 90s, in the early 2000s, there was not the cooperation between the utilities and the city. And my view is the utility department can help really accentuate and promote industrial and city growth through developments if there's cooperation. I have seen firsthand what cooperation can be. If you look at the development at the mall when the Publix came in, the utility department made a large investment there to help get a large sales tax agent into this community. And now we're looking at some projects out in the north area of Tullahoma, which is one of the only areas we have to grow. And the utility department is going to be spending several $1 million to grow, and we will not recover that money for a long time at the rate that we will get from those new citizens when they build new homes. The city will. The city will make minimum investment because of developers that develop subdivisions have to make those investments. The city will reap sales tax revenue from those immediately. The utility department will make a large investment of cash and will get that money back over a long period of time. So we respectfully ask that you consider our request for the $1 million to help us make those improvements to allow for those future developments out in those areas of the community. It will help the city grow. It will be good for all of our ratepayers, who, by the way, are taxpayers, and we all grow together. So I thank you for your time. I certainly thank you for your service. I know the pain and agony you go through when you see someone walk up here with a folder. But this is a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus package that was passed. It's meant for infrastructure and economic development. And I would ask that you consider that as you vote on this project list that comes before you. Again, thank you for your service and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cope. Anybody else on the package?
My name is J.T. Northcutt, and I live on 129 Cumberland Trace. I'm not going to say the same song Mr. Cope did, but I do realize what the burden is on this board. I do realize this is tough. I will say that I have looked at the list of things that you all intend to do with it, and I can honestly say that all is needed. I will just say that I think we're at a very critical time. Middle Tennessee is growing. It's growing leaps and bounds. And we're in the midst of that. I think I think when opportunities come, you have to take advantage of opportunities at that time and place. They don't stay forever. So this is a time where a lot of these communities, these builders are going to build. They'll either build in Franklin County, they'll build in Moore County, but they're going to build. We have a great opportunity, and by the way, this is just not starting today. Tullahoma's been growing quite a bit over the last few years. With that, TUA has invested a lot already. We're asking for your help. And this is not an either or. The Tullahoma Utilities Authority is not separate from the way that the city does things. You know, this has always been a joint venture. That we become an authority has not changed the posture and the way that we interact with the city. And Tullahoma is not going to benefit if these two boards don't work together. This is a prime time to help Tullahoma grow in the right direction. We are going to grow some. It's just a matter of how much we're going to grow and how much we're going to let get away. So I urge you to do what you can to also support our cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Northcutt.
Thank you, Mayor Norris and Alderman. Brian Skelton, 105 Blantonwood Drive, the president of Tullahoma Utilities Authority. I'm not sure I can add a whole lot to this, but just a couple of comments to refresh your memory and maybe for the public also. These two wastewater projects that we're looking at are estimated to cost approximately $3.1 million. In the 16 years that I've been here, we have never spent any kind of magnitude of that money on growth. We have done rehab projects, but not growth projects, and spent that kind of money. And I said this at the work session, the number one reason that developers annex into the city is for wastewater. It's not for the school system, it's not for trash, it's for wastewater, because they can build smaller lots and they can get they can make it more profitable, and in this economy, it's tough to break even building houses. They've gotten so expensive. PVC pipe for developers that are putting pipe in have probably tripled in the last 18 months. There's many good projects on the list that are being considered, but I'll say it again, it's the only project, this project here is the only project that is being discussed, to my knowledge, that has a direct impact on the city growing. They all have an impact on the quality of life in the city, but they don't have an impact on the city growing. And again, just respectfully would ask that the BMA consider supporting us by providing $1 million. We have not, in my 16 years, asked the city for money. I don't anticipate us asking again. But this is a special circumstance when a windfall of money comes into the city like that. We will be back, I'm sure, in the future, asking for the city to participate in the application of rehab projects on the water and wastewater side, but that's a different round of funding than we're talking about today. Scott Young, who's the VP of our water and wastewater system, is here. He doesn't have anything to say, I don't think, but if you have any questions about the project, this might be the appropriate time to ask if anyone did have a question. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Skelton. Anyone else on the American Rescue Plan Fund?
Hello, my name is Eleanor Gilchrist, and I reside at 2215 Avoca Road. It's in the northwest quadrant of Tullahoma. Much to my surprise, since I've been living here and at that location since 2009, I experienced substantial flooding in my home, in my basement, approximately 4 feet or 4.5 feet of flooding, according to the plumber. By the time all was said and done, I was looking at a bill of approximately $2,700 for the water mitigation company and the plumber. So I am here simply to address the experience of a resident who was shocked and then had to endure a rather large bill, in addition to the fact that, of course, insurance, even though they're there, they don't pay very much. Let me assure you of that. So there is a substantial, to me, issue with flooding in the northwest quadrant. When I addressed this with Councilwoman Blackwell, she told me to talk to Ms. Samaniego. And when I talked to Ms. Samaniego about whether or not an environmental impact statement had been done, and to me, having gone through this experience, it's specifically related to the development between the Riley Creek and Avoca Road. That's a new development. So of course, I'm going to think about that, because this is the first time I've experienced this amount of flooding in my home. So she said, no, an environmental impact statement had not been done on that development because it was too small. It was not required. So I am here to address the possibility if some of this money can go into the direction of really looking at the hydrology involved and the effect that putting in developments, even though they may seem small, can have on the other area and the residents in the broader area. And the reason that I am saying that is simply because the water mitigation people actually said to me that that can sometimes be the case when a development comes into place, that it can impact with whatever, the weight coming down, the way that the underground water flows, because this water came into the basement from underneath the ground. And I've done my fair share of caving in Tennessee. I know we have a lot of water underground here, but this is water way down. So it's not, to me, to my understanding, it's not the same as flood water that's not going out through the ditch bank. This is actually water coming up from underneath. So my request is please consider the local residents and the fact that we may get affected when these developers come in if a proper environmental impact statement that addresses the change in the hydrology and the flow of underground water isn't done. And if there's any way that some of that money I can recoup on some of that expense, that would be great, but I'm not necessarily expecting that at this point. I'm just saying that it would be helpful if we could get that issue addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up, state your name and address.
Bob Bates, 501 Marbury Road. To follow up on something Eleanor was just talking about, the city Parks and City Public Works Department in 2015 decided to decline responsibility for stormwater flooding on private property. For whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but this is a chance to remedy that situation, have the city involved totally in all flooding on private and private leading to public spaces. And so I think some of this money definitely should go to stormwater kind of related things, but go back and include the city's involvement in all private property stormwater issues. There should be an extensive deferred maintenance plan from Public Works and or other departments that ought to be high on the priority list for what needs to be done. When you do get windfall money, going back and doing some of the things you've not been able to do budget-wise before on a deferred list is a pretty important thing as far as I'm concerned. I think also this money ought to be coordinated with the 2040 plan. If it's not coordinated with the 2040 plan, why is it not included in the 2040 plan? So I'd like to make sure that everything that is listed also comes out in the 2040 plan. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your money on the thing. We have to plan as a city for local resilience so that we are able to weather any kind of storms that may come our way. Not literally necessarily, but COVID was a storm that hit everybody. This city, just like everybody else, had a lot of negative things that happened to it. So in future planning with this money and with the 2040 coordinated effort, if you can put resilience in so that you've got more emphasis on local supplies, local businesses, local employment, that will be permanent and not taken away sometime because some supply chain thing got broken and now these people are out of jobs and stuff. So I'd like to see more emphasis and maybe use some of this money for that kind of thing also. which leads to this being, if you can spend this money where it's people-centered and not a business-centered enterprise. This should be spent, it's a windfall for the city, every citizen of this city, and it should be, in my humble opinion, people-centered and not business-centered. And that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at all? If not, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll call to order the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Reverend Tom Murdock for the invocation and the pledge. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Reverend Murdock.
Holy One, as always, we are grateful for this community, for its people, for the beauty of this community that has drawn us here, that welcomes us. From the trees and the water is all those things that we are grateful for. We're grateful for the leaders, the different organizations, for the way in which we work together. Tonight, as always, we ask for your wisdom, for your breath, to help us with fresh ideas, to fill us with compassion as we work together to build a stronger and better community. We give you thanks always in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Murdock. And now it's the city recorder to call the roll.
Mayor Noes.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Blanks. Here. Alderperson Almacher.
Here.
Berry. Here. Blackwell.
Here.
Dunn. Here. McGee. Here. 7 present.
Thank you. I've got a proclamation I'd like to read. Proclamation for Drinking Water Week, May the 1st through the 7th, 2022. Mayor's proclamation. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas only tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy, and whereas any measure of a successful society, low mortality rates, economic growth and diversity, productivity, and public safety, there are some of the ways related to access to safe water, and whereas we're all stewards of water infrastructure upon the future generations depend, and whereas each citizen of Tullahoma is called upon to help protect our source of water from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues by getting to know their water. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tullahoma, I do hereby proclaim May 1 through 7, 2022 as Drinking Water Week. Son Ray Norris, Mayor. And for this, I'd like to ask Mr. heard his name mentioned earlier tonight, Mr. Scott Young. Come forward for the proclamation.
Drinking water, right here. That made me think about we don't talk about Bruno.
Hey. We want to see you in about a week down at,
That's right.
Talk About Water?
Next Thursday, May the 5th.
Okay.
We're going to taco about water down at Tullahoma Utilities Authority. Going to have tacos for everybody, drinks, prizes. I tried to get a margarita bar, but it didn't go through. Anyhow, hope everybody shows up and we'll have a great time.
Thank you, Scott. Congratulations. Okay, with that, tonight we have some reports from some of our agencies and authorities. And first, I'd like to recognize the Tullahoma Airport Authority for their annual report.
Keller. Producer, Tullahoma Airport presentation. So we've got 3 new board members, Mike Lee, Steve Cope, Dr. Skip Farr. My chairman, Paul Sirks, is here tonight, Steve Cope, of course, and I don't know if anybody else is. Mayor, thank you for continuing to be our liaison for many years now. We appreciate that. We have 3 full-time staff members, have over 65 years experience at the airport. We've got 3 retired part-time employees. R.D. Perry's our newest, along with Tim Bovee and Randy Roepke. And then we will be losing 2 part-timers to college here in the next few months. Our past fuel sales, 2019 was our best year ever at 255,000 gallons. 2021 was still a good year at 221,000 gallons despite COVID. And for 2022, we're estimating about 190 to 200,000 gallons. High fuel prices being our biggest enemy right now. On this slide, we have fuel prices from other airports in Middle Tennessee. We were at $5 a gallon on avgas. I received a full load avgas this morning, so that price is going to go up about 40 cents a gallon. Put us about the same as Chevyville. If you look at Nashville, they're at $9.12 a gallon and $8.74 on jet fuel. 2021 special events, the last 2 years have been a little disappointing. Bonnaroo was canceled again. We had our CAP Glider Academy, which ran into 5 out of 6 days of bad weather in July, which is hard to happen. We did have our beach party in October. We had about 155 aircraft, 450 visitors to the city, and 9,500 gallons of fuel sold. And military training at the airport's been much more active the last 2 years. Airport projects completed. We finished a full depth replacement on an asphalt taxiway in a corporate hangar area. That project was funded 100% by TDOT. I'm proud to say it's completed on time and $70,000 under budget than what we anticipated. Our current airport projects, we have airport layout plan going on right now. It's about a 3-year process. We're about 60% through that. We've got some new FAA compliance issues that we're working on one runway. That project started last week. Our 2 turf runways, we're going to submit a project for that next month. And we also are getting a runway 624, which is our primary runway, seal code and marking, and that's with 100% funding also by TDOT. Some of our future airport project needs, we need to do some tree clearing and some runway approaches, new electrical vault, ramp taxiway concrete repair, and runway 1836 concrete repair is an issue for us since it's a secondary runway at the airport. Federal funding's presently not available. The bipartisan infrastructure law, our airport's going to get $295,000 per year for 5 years. This will be a little bit different where applications have to be approved by our Aeronautics Division with TDOT and also the FAA Airport District Office in Memphis. I just said our biggest need for runway 1836 is concrete repair work. We're going to try to submit that with this program. I'm not real optimistic, but we will definitely try. TDOT did an economic study of the airports in the state about 18 months ago. They looked at all the 6 commercial airports and the 72 general aviation airports. Showed that all the airports in the state contribute $40 billion to our economy, support about 220,000 jobs, and our airport was ranked 2nd behind Chattanooga in TDOT Region 2. And you can see the numbers here. Total economic impact is $21 million and about 149 employees in this area just from our airport. Our goals, safety is always our top priority. We want to reduce the amount that you fund the airport through increasing our fuel sales. We do a good job of control our operating expenses, and we get a lot of help from community service workers and volunteers, and we can definitely keep within our present staff levels. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
Good report, thank you.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to hear from our Economic Development Corporation annual report from Winston Brooks.
Producer, if you could show the slide, please. Great. I'm Winston Brooks, the Executive Director for the Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation, and it's an honor to be here before you tonight to talk about the activities and projects that the TAEDC has been ongoing over the past year or so. And first slide there, our purpose, mission, and goals is to promote economic development with emphasis on aerospace, aviation, retail, medical and technical services, entrepreneurial, and tourist development. So that's our niche, as opposed to our partner in Coffee County. We do this by creating and retaining jobs, attracting and stimulating commerce and private investment, lessen the burden of government, increase aid received from broader governmental units, workforce development, and we also work to promote health, education, and living conditions. So, as all of you know, it's critical to have a city ready to do business. One way to summarize our mission is that we're selling our world-class infrastructure, our shovel-ready sites, our market area, our inexpensive power, our water, our fiber, our favorable income tax and property tax environment, our roads, schools, workforce, medical, retail hub, cost of living, and more. So we are going out and just trying to tell people, hey, this is a great place to live. We all know it. We're trying to get that word out. When I have 30 seconds, I'd like to say that Tullahoma is a vibrant economic hub and a growing city. Tullahoma is a tourism destination with natural assets and a cultural of innovation in aviation and aerospace testing and medical services, a proud, attractive community with great schools, diverse housing, and a small town lifestyle. Our reason for success is our great team. We leverage their unique skills and diverse perspectives of these community champions. Each director has an accomplished career and experience to foster economic development. Our chairman, Dr. Lynn Seaburn, aerospace engineer, and I'd like to recognize Dave Bond, who is with us tonight, electrical engineer. He's also the chairman of the Coffee County Industrial Board, which I want to add, it's been a pleasure working with Stephen Crook, the new director of the Coffee County Industrial Board. We've partnered together already and have spent time in meetings and conferences together, so we're looking forward to that partnership. Eugene London, expert in cybersecurity. John McCord, insurance professional, business leader. Rich Ellis, hospital administrator. Steve May. Many of you know Steve's record down in Lynchburg, and so hospitality and distillery, and then Beverly Lee, who's retired as a colonel in the Air Force. So I want to start today with why retail strategies. As everyone knows, Tullahoma is the hub of this region, and retail is critically important to the budget of the city of Tullahoma. So retail strategies surrounds our community with the resources and actions needed to create the desired results. So over the life of this relationship, these are some of the brands that they have brought into our community, and there are much more to come. So there are some exciting announcements on the horizon, so stay tuned. With Retail Strategies as our partner, they have the same goals that we have, is to increase our revenues, job creation, quality of life, new business, and then the challenges in green, our resources, our time, connections, and experience. And the connection part cannot be understated in the recruiting of retail. Again, over the life of this relationship, Retail Strategies provides marketing materials that we hand out at different conferences, and they meet with retail prospects, brokers, developers at many conferences across the nation that we couldn't attend by ourselves. They also provide some concierge type data services like mobile tracking. But over that lifetime, I wanted to point out they've created about 425 jobs, increased the annual retail sales by $73 million, and then our $1.4 million in increased sales tax revenue to Tullahoma annually. This is the actual real numbers of sales tax, and so you can see that it's trending in the right way. It starts at 2017 in the dark red on the left, with the yellow being our current fiscal year we're in. Some of our partner organizations that I wanted to point out, mastered in Tennessee, that's our state economic development department that we work closely with. Some of these you would imagine to see. Some people have heard of ARC, that's a federal organization that we're actually working on a grant right now for our downtown. Some of the most important ones, though, are our local partners, TUA, the Industrial Board of Coffee County, and then in the bottom right, Launch Tennessee is the state's entrepreneurial efforts. So we go to conferences and stay engaged with them. ICSC, that's a partner that we use, we are members of, and are also closely related to Retail Strategies. They host all of the retail conferences around the country, and so we are represented at all of those ICSC conferences by Retail Strategies, and we attend some of those meetings as well. So our memberships are very important as well. Again, one of our most important ones here locally include the Arnold Community Council. We've recently become a member of the Association of Defense Communities, the National Defense Industrial Association, the Japan-America Society of Tennessee, looking at this Tennessee Valley Corridor, which is an exciting opportunity to get involved with. We're Tennessee downtown, and hope to one day maybe be a Main Street, or at least instill some Main Street organizational into our downtown. International Downtown Association, there's ICSC, and also a member of the International Economic Development Council. Looks like it got cut off a little bit, but I'll read it there. This is, Tullahoma Manchester is a region that has created economic resiliency by parlaying its unique military, educational, and industry assets into new and expanded knowledge base and advanced manufacturing companies that have steadily grown jobs, wages, and new firms. At the same time, this growth has supported the expansion of regional retail, recreation, and healthcare sectors. So this is an article that recently came out. The title of the article, and these are all linked on our website, there's some other ones too that I will suggest that you go look at. I can also will follow up with an email, but this one is called Southern Small City Resilience, How Small Cities Are Driving Dynamic Economic Growth, and it's by an organization called RTI International, and it came out in September 2021. So what we know is also being recognized by outside sources, so that's great to see. And we will continue, and that's one of our main missions, is to pursue that aviation, aerospace, and all the economic spinoff that comes with that. One of our other board members, retired Colonel Beverly Lee from the Air Force, she was very instrumental in our application and having Tullahoma, Tennessee, named as a great American defense community. So this is really a huge feather in our cap. Everyone should take advantage of this and promote this, help us get the word out. Great quote here, the strength of our military starts at home in America's defense communities. ADC President Bob Ross said, "Tullahoma is a prime example of how a community can provide support and assistance to nearby installations." So we'll be going to an award ceremony in October and getting recognized. To give you, there were only 5 other communities with this distinguished award. The next closest in population was a community with 1 million. And then the 2 highest populated areas, one was Northern Virginia, the other was the Florida Space Coast. We also have a great asset at the airport. Wait a minute, I must have missed something here. We also have a great asset at the airport, as we heard Mr. Glass talk about. There's a 100-acre shovel-ready Select Tennessee site there, and we've got a brand-new sign. Kudos to Mary Samaniego for taking that initiative. We've got new construction going on. There's already several businesses located in the park. That's one of our primary missions, is to continue to recruit those types of businesses, and they work with our partners to target those aerospace and defense communities to try and attract those businesses to Tullahoma. We want to continue to market the airport. And then the Arnold Community Council, as I mentioned, one of the membership organizations we're part of, very important here to support our base. We travel on an annual basis to D.C. to advocate for the mission at AEDC. Now, these are several projects that we've been involved with over past couple of years, but I put them up there because we need hundreds of more companies like this. The GTL is a company over on Mitchell Boulevard that partnered recently with a company out of California called High Point. High Point is a hydrogen fuel cell company, but this is a small company. Is that my time? I'm going fast. Innovative, entrepreneurial technology, everything we want here. And then also Mike Williamson's $1 million renovation of the airport. We also recently partnering with the Arnold Community Council and local industry to lead a committee on workforce issues relating to AEDC. The Arnold Community Council has asked Colonel Beverly Lee to lead that effort. So we've got several initiatives that will be taking off there soon. And I was at a TVA conference recently, and workforce, available skilled workforce, is the #1 issue for company executives. Quality of life is #4. On the site consultant side, the #1 is labor cost, and #9 is available land. So just a little bit of a comparison there on what companies are looking for and what consultants are looking for. We'll continue to promote our medical services, leveraging our Vanderbilt brand. We're planning to attend some biomed conferences in the future. This will be something new that we're going to add. And we're also helping to recruit doctors and staff, and we're also working on some workforce development initiatives with Motlow and Vanderbilt. We'll continue to market our Tullahoma Fiber. One of those, as you know, is like the Ascend call center out on Ledford Mill, and there are also some other new technology-related announcements forthcoming. And I do want to add that at this same TVA conference, it was noted, they asked what kind of industry is Bank of America, and so the normal answers came, but Bank of America now identifies as a technology company. So, all right, finally, I'll skip over this fairly quickly. This is kind of how we're doing. Those are on the left, the business licenses trending in the right direction, and then our unemployment remains low. And in 2020, although it says 4%, those are February numbers, it did go up to about 11%. Finally, our budget request, and I appreciate your patience with me. So we'll continue our regular budgeted items like retail strategies, Atlas Advertising, who provides our database, our site database for our commercial locations and our industrial locations, printing, publication, marketing, legal services, the normal types of stuff. But our new request we're looking at is increased training and travel to increase our conference activity. So that's a list of some of the aviation, aerospace, and biomed conferences that we'd like to attend, with the ultimate goal of, in a few years, maybe having a booth at a couple of those conferences. We're looking to put some banners at key locations that promote the great American defense community, and then several new memberships, the Tennessee Valley Corridor, Tennessee Advanced Energy Business Council, and the AIA Aerospace Industries Association. And that's all I have, and I'd be glad to take any questions at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will hear our annual audit presentation from Householder and Artman with Ms. Linda Bean.
Hi, I'm Linda Bean from Householder Artman here in Tullahoma. We do the audit for the city and all the city funds. I hope everybody has had a chance to go through it, all 185 pages of it. Everything you want to know about the city of Tullahoma and the operations for this past year, for the year ended June 30th, 2021. The audit opinion was an unqualified opinion, which states that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. Does anybody have any particular questions?
I believe we have no question. We read every word.
Okay. I'll be glad to answer any questions. If you have them, please feel free to give me a call, and I'll be glad to go over anything with anybody.
Thank you very much, Ms.
All right, thanks.
Bean. Now. Okay, at this time, we'll move to the approval of the agenda.
I object to the agenda because I wish to add 2 items to the agenda, please.
We'll first get the agenda on the board, on a motion for the agenda, then we'll come to an amendment. Get that. First, I'll hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Yes.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. I need a second.
Second.
We got a second.
I would like to
Now,
make...
with the motion and a second, are there any changes?
Yes. I would like to add 2 items, please. The first to add, a discussion of disciplinary actions in response to Alderman Almacher's inappropriate behavior at both the April 11th Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting and the February 28th executive session under new business.
Okay, that will be one amendment, or?
That is my first item.
That's the first one?
Yes, sir.
That's one.
The second item to add, to invoke the power of this board as stated in Title I, Chapter 2, Section 210, and launch an investigation that it may deem proper. And I've added that if you guys need to see which chapter I'm talking about.
Can you say that chapter number again?
Yes. Sorry.
Mayor, point of order. I believe we need to vote on one amendment at a time.
Woman Dunn, do you have those amendments that you're making, do you have those written that could be presented to the recorder?
I'll leave that.
Okay, at this time, we do have 2 amendments. We'll take them one at a time. First, we'll hear the first amendment, and if our recorder could read for the record the first amendment.
The first is to add discussion of disciplinary action in response to Alderman Almacher's inappropriate behavior at both the April 11th Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting and at the executive session that was held on February 28th under new business.
That is a motion to discuss. Is that what I heard? A motion to discuss.
Point of order.
Just a moment. Is that
Yes. Yes.
Is that the motion to discuss?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have the amendment, a motion for the amendment So at that time, we'll have to take a vote to get the amendment on the floor.
I need a second.
You need a second. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion purposes.
We have a second on the motion to discuss. With that, we will have the discussion, the debate.
Point of order, though, Mayor, she did have a point of order that was not recognized.
Mr. Mayor, I believe it would be a violation of due process for you to invoke disciplinary action under the Board of Mayor and Alderman policies and procedures that were not yet enacted. And so I would say that this motion is improper.
Well, I believe we have enacted, we have the policies and procedures. You have a
But
copy that we adopted.
You
last
cannot
meeting.
you cannot enact them retroactively.
They were enacted last board meeting. Okay.
No, we're voting on the first one for the motion. So for the February 28th, they were not enacted.
We have an amendment. We have a second. And we are now in the discussion for that amendment. You made the motion, Alderman Dunn. Do you wish to add any discussion?
No.
Go ahead.
No discussion? I don't even get to know what I did?
Are we not doing this
Well-
under, the motion I made was under new business.
To add it.
To add it as the
We're at
item.
we're at that point.
We're adding it now. We're going to discuss this now.
No. We'll get it.
Add it to discuss.
We'll add the amendment to discuss. So we have a motion and a second.
So now we need to vote on the amendment, is
We
that
need to
correct?
vote on that amendment.
To the,
Point of order, shouldn't discussions go under the study session?
We're just discussing to add this amendment. We're discussing to add this amendment as new business. Item one.
You're amending the agenda. Add another item to the agenda.
That's all we're doing at this point. We're adding to it. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, vote green for yes and red for no.
oh gosh.
Vote passes 6-1 to add item 1 as an amendment. Now we have another amendment. And Mr. City Recorder, would you read the second amendment?
The second amendment to discuss, to add this,
No.
to add this to the agenda. We're going to discuss adding this to the agenda.
The item is to invoke the power.
The item is to invoke the power of this board as stated in Title I, Chapter 2, Section 210, and launch an investigation as it may deem proper.
Executive session.
Okay, that is the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We now will have the discussion to add a second amendment to the agenda. Further discussion?
I'm sorry, so to invoke, can you read it one more time? I'm processing.
To invoke the power of this board as stated in Title I, Chapter 2, Section 210, and launch an investigation as it may seem deemed proper.
I think what she needs to do, you're just adding at this point to the agenda.
So we're doing.
When you come to that point in the agenda, then you will discuss invoking that.
We're only discussing adding to the agenda right now, not the merits of the
Not
agenda.
just adding it, we're not discussing.
Okay.
Add it to the agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on adding to the agenda? Alderman Berry.
Yeah, I need some clarification. I think we're not discussing it, but it's still, the motion doesn't say what it is we're invoking specifically to discuss. And I think that it's kind of a very broad, and I'm not comfortable voting on a very broad kind of statement without a specific. This is what we're going to discuss invoking an investigation on.
That will be discussed when that's brought as an amendment.
Point of order.
I'm going to vote no without knowing what I'm asking to discuss.
Alderman Almacher.
To be clear, this is just to put it on the agenda.
With all due respect, this board needs to understand what due process is. Number one, these investigations are for city business, city employees, city boards, city commissions. We are elected officials. I am a representative of the citizens, not the city. This does
Point
not
of
give
order.
you the
We're
authority
talking about
to
the agenda.
investigate me. And for this to even be added to the agenda, given what it is, I should be able to invoke my rights, and I'm going to deeply and vehemently oppose, because it would be a violation of due process for you to add this.
We're now discussing adding the amendment. Any further discussion on adding the amendment? Adding,
This is taking away from city business.
Agreed.
yes, Alderman Blackwell.
Yes, I would like to understand what we would like to discuss in it. Are we saying that we are wanting that will be discussed at that agenda item?
That is correct.
As opposed to telling us before we put it on the agenda?
The motion has been read.
Should the motion be amended to include what we are going to discuss? Or is it regarding what the last agenda item was?
I think the wording is instead of not use the word invoke it at
Okay.
this point in time, I would just say consideration of this Title 1, Chapter 2, 210, as it relates to the board.
Oh, okay.
And that would take the action invoke away, if that would.
That's fine.
Be, okay.
It's fine by me on the second.
Fine on the motion, fine on the second. Okay.
Consideration to just discuss this item in our code.
We'll discuss
Okay.
that. We'll discuss that when the motion with the amendments. Okay, no further discussion. We'll vote green for yes and red for no for the second item to be added to the agenda as an amendment. Green for yes, red for no. Passes 5-2. So we have two items to be added as new business. The amendments will be added to the agenda.
Go back and look at the agenda.
Now then, we go back to the original action to approve the agenda as amended with two amendments. Vote green for yes and red for no.
Mr. Mayor, I had motions to change the agenda, and excuse me for getting blindsided, but may I present them?
We've called for a vote on the original agenda. We had amendments made. There's no further discussion. We're now back on the original motion to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Green for yes and red for no. And that passes 6-1. So the agenda that we'll be working on tonight, we'll have as presented with two items added at the end under new business. Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor for comments from citizens. If you would come to this podium, you may take 3 minutes, state your name and address. Seeing no comments from citizens, we'll go on to Oh, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address.
How you doing? My name is Royce Massengill, 109 Gentry Street, Tullahoma, Tennessee, 37388. This is just a PSA. Oh,
Sorry, could you say your name again?
okay. My name is Royce Massengill, ROYCE, MASSENGILL, from Tullahoma, Tennessee, 109 Gentry Street.
Thank you.
Good, okay. All right, so this is just a little PSA for everybody. June the 18th, from 12 to 5 p.m., we're actually celebrating Tullahoma's actually first Juneteenth event. Now that it's become a federal holiday as of last year, I myself, along with Jamie Moorhead and a couple of other of our constituents, have came together and decided to bring Tullahoma, something historical. I do just want to give a quick shout out to Rupert Blackwell and Robin Dunn for putting their hands in this and giving us a little guidance on how to, kind of work the paperwork, because that's something that I'm not used to a little bit. I run my mouth more than anything, so I had to kind of be quiet and learn how to put the pen to the pad. So we do appreciate them helping. We thank you guys, but we really want to invite everybody to the Juneteenth event. If you don't know much about Juneteenth, just in a nutshell, it's basically the last remaining of the slaves who just figured out that they were no longer slaves anymore, but some of us were still slaves in the mind. And so the theme of it is called Shattered Chains. So the difference between a shattered chain and a broken chain is a broken chain can be welded together pretty easily. But when a chain is shattered in many pieces, it's kind of hard to put back together. And so that's the mentality. We're trying to break the mental chains, and we want to make sure that the negative thoughts that we have as a black community, as a lower income community, as just people all together, that we need to shatter those negative thoughts that we can't progress as a town, as a community, black, white, Asian, no matter what color or whatever creed that you are. We want to invite everybody to this Juneteenth event to learn some black history, which is American history. We're going to have food, we're going to have vendors, we're going to have basketball tournaments, we're going to have music, we're going to have spoken word, art, scavenger hunt, trivia for the kids. So it's going to be pretty dope. We've got a lot of people sponsoring, Randstad's coming through to get some jobs. We've got some healthcare screening. We're going to have some, what else we got? Help me out real quick. What's that? Oh, housing. Some housing. We're going to have people signed up for some housing there for people that need homes. Like I said, jobs. We all need jobs around here. It's kind of hard, so Randstad will be here. I believe we'll have some health screening, some financial groups coming here to give some financial advice, so we all need a little bit of that. But we just decided giving this to Tullahoma, and we hope you guys can all come out and represent. 12 to 5, June the 18th at the Historical City Stamps, aka Davidson Academy. And it's a free event. I forgot about that. So make sure you guys come out, and thank you to all the sponsors. We did some footwork last weekend, so definitely a shout out to T-Town Smoothie. Shout out to Fit Beyond Therapy. There you go. There you go. Appreciate y'all. And anybody else that we have forgotten, but we're getting the programs together. Of course, we're still taking donations. We're still selling ads and sponsorships. So if anybody's interested, please contact me or Jamie Moorhead, before you leave, and we'll give you guys the rest of the information. So, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Massengill. Okay. Are there any of the applicants here for the Arts Council that would like to speak tonight? Please come forward and state your name and address.
I'm Alan Mays. I live at 219 Lakewood Drive, and I'm one of the applicants for the Arts Council. Appreciate the Tullahoma's embracing of the arts and the education of arts, and I'd be happy to serve on that board.
Thank you very much. We have that on the agenda later tonight. Anyone else from the Arts Council? Okay, thank you. Any other comments from other citizens? If not, we'll move on to the report from the Alderman. Let's start with Alderman McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything to report as the Tullahoma Housing Authority. They canceled their meeting, and due to my cardiac rehab, I wasn't able to make the Industrial Board of Coffee County. But I would like to say thank you to the City of Tullahoma, South Jackson Civic Center, Tullahoma Parks and Recreations for a successful pancake breakfast with the Easter Bunny. The egg hunt was a huge success. And I would just also like to say, and I may be out of order when I say this, so I'm apologizing up front, but I just feel like it needs to be said. I think there are too many personal agendas that are hindering us, and we can't properly take care of the business of the citizens and the city. And what we just experienced has changed the whole mood of this room. So I think we need to be mindful of that.
Alderman Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended several events in the community, including South Jackson's first outdoor concert, which was amazing, and I can't wait to do it again. I left my list at home, so that's all. And I'll keep it short, because we got a lot to do.
Alderman Amaker.
Attended a 911 committee meeting last Wednesday. We barely had a quorum. Our chairman was not present, neither was our vice chairman, but there were 4 of us present. A lot of changes going on with the 911 committee. They're having some issues with AT&T, and been hearing a lot of people say they're having issues with their phone lines, but it's not a good thing whenever your 911 operations has issues with their phone lines. So we voted to continue talks with changing from AT&T to Ben Lomond. But if you have problems getting a hold of 911, if there are any issues, and I have written down the number and misplaced it, but would somebody give it to me? There is, do you have it, Daniel? There's a number, you need to call the non-emergency number. And I wanted to make this announcement, and then I left the number in my car. So I'm sure it's publicly available, but I did want to make that because I thought, I would hate for somebody to have an emergency, not be able to reach the 911 people, and then
0530, right? Oh, is that okay?
That would work too. What's the police station?
3411, that's right. That's right.
The non-emergency dispatch is 728-9555, and the Tullahoma Police Department is. Do we know that one?
That's Manchester.
Oh, that's Manchester. 0530. 455-0530. Thank you. So there's a couple of different numbers. I wanted to give those out. That's not a good thing. The other thing is they discussed new policy for tow truck drivers. Apparently there have been some overcharging. There's a schedule, a state schedule that the tow truck drivers, if you get in a wreck and they come and they have to report to you, they have a schedule of charges that they can charge. Unfortunately, there are people on our lists that are overcharging, and I won't call out those businesses by name. But what they are doing as a result of that is all the tow truck businesses, there's now a new policy, and they have to be state inspected, and they have to go by the state guidelines before they can get on our list to report to wrecks. So a couple of different things there. So if you've had your vehicle towed, you may want to go back and look at your charges. Tourism Council meeting last Thursday was canceled. I spoke to Winston about that. We've got some work to do there because Steve May was such an asset, but upon his retirement from Jack Daniels, he is no longer, he was our chairman and he retired, and we don't have a replacement there. So our whiskey contacts have diminished our board a little bit. So until we can revamp those, Tourism Council meetings have been postponed temporarily, and so we haven't had one in a few this month or last month. So we'll try to get back on that. However, there are lots of things coming down the pipeline, and I did notice that with our city department report, that's good news for nonprofit arts, culture recovery, tourism, and hospitality, because there's extra ARPA funds, including $80 million for nonprofit arts and culture recovery, and another $55 million for Tennessee Tourism and Hospitality Recovery Fund that are outside of this $5.8 million that we are getting just for Tullahoma City. So I'm hoping that we can get our tourism council back together to at least discuss how we can be of service to make sure those funds are divvied out and we get our fair share of those. As to the drama tonight, I will apologize to...
Point of order, this is no longer about the item.
I don't know that that's in our Board of Policies and Procedures, so what's your point? Show me in the Board of Policies and Procedures where I can't make a personal statement. Until then, I would like to be able to speak.
I think the timing, though, we need to keep moving, right?
Call for a brief recess.
Make sure it's turned on.
Mayor?
Meeting will come back to order.
My face is just like that.
First off, Alderman Almacher, your 3 minutes had expired, but let me read one comment. On board reports, the agenda shall provide a time for the board members to give a report related to various committees, commissions, and boards on which they're board liaison. They have no more than 3 minutes to present. All other comments are considered to be out of order. It's in the
I serve on this board.
Your time has expired. Alderman Blackwell.
Thank you. I have 3 things to talk about. First, I just want to thank Mr. Anderson since he's here. We have now finished using essentially all of the money for the Jefferson Street project. To give you all a heads up, we ended up having to utilize the rest of the funds to fix an issue we were having with the parking lot that seemed structurally unsound. And hopefully it won't ever be like that again, and we'll maintain it properly from now on. But so that is where we're at with that. And thank you to all of you for being a part of this too. Board of Education meeting was phenomenal to see last week and a half ago. I want to tell you that they did want to make sure that we thanked Sue and Jennifer for their help with ensuring that they knew what to expect projection-wise with sales tax revenue as they're working on their budget. I also wanted to let you know that they funded $6.8 million worth of improvements to our schools with nary an argument and nary an issue. And I want to tell you some of those really cool things that they're doing. They are redoing the Bel Air ceiling tile from Train. They are doing upgrades to the ductwork in there, which we know has been something that's been long coming. Bel Air roof project, they realized they needed to redo that. $4 million approximately to do the THS roof. Y'all, take care of our roofs, right? Tennis courts are being redone. paving is happening. And I just wanted to point out how it was seamless, and I think it was because they had study sessions before they came in and were ready to vote. So I wanted to discuss that. Downtown Council, there is an item on the agenda that, in all seriousness, I've been calling as many businesses as possible to get information on. And because of that, and I don't know quite what happened over the past like 4 years or so, but I would like to start having the Downtown Council meet again. And I'm hoping to do that the second week of June. And Jennifer's probably like, this is a surprise. What is she talking about? Because I was thinking about it this morning as I was fielding phone calls about it. And I think it's important for us to start meeting again. I think we're all able to do that safely now. So that's the goal, is the second week of June. That will be forthcoming, and I will share that information once that is set. And hopefully we'll put that on the calendar. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Dunn.
Yes, sir. We had an Earth Day celebration last Monday. There were several hundred people in attendance and several nonprofits, so big thanks to the nonprofits who joined us, and also to the River Network and Coca-Cola who sponsored our rain barrels. It was very clear from those who were present that stormwater is a major concern for our citizens. Also met with the tree board. We are having a tree naming ceremony on April 29th at 1 o'clock. It's behind the Painted House. We have an award-winning willow oak. It's the largest willow oak in the state. So please come out and join us.
Looking forward to the naming of the tree. Mayor Pro Tem Blanks.
Shop Tullahoma, that's it.
Thank you. Alderman Blanks.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
Had a meeting with Congressman
Sir,
John.
I misspoke. It's at 1 o'clock on April 29th. I apologize.
No, they're saying 10. Everyone's saying 10.
Oh, it's 10. Okay, it is at 10. Thank you.
They're all saying
Sorry.
10.
I'm sorry.
Go check it out.
Apologize.
Had a meeting with Congressman John Orr last week and his staff from City Hall. Airport board meeting, and we'll note that at the airport board meeting, there was an objection to the rezoning of a 2-acre tract across the street on Ledford Mill from C2 to R3. That'll come on our agenda later tonight. Also had a fun day with Alderman Dunn bringing a group of homeschoolers to the City Hall last week. Kids wanted to know about city government. And I'll tell you, don't ever ask if you've got any questions to third graders. They'll have third graders you can't ask, I guarantee you. Issued a proclamation to the campus care group for their fine service in the city for our community. Planning Commission meeting. Also, we had a meeting last Thursday night for the Child Care Creation Program for a grant opportunity. Also might note that I received a letter from DRUC from Duck River Utility Commission from Ronald Breaker. He's the general manager. You can expect an increase in your drinking water probably next July. Expect the rates to go up about 10 cents per 1,000 gallons. So that's not so good news, but the good news is he has plenty of water. So that's a good thing. One of the things I perhaps should have mentioned or should have put forward under the Public Works comments tonight is that I have received over the weekend and today a number of comments from people who participate in the farmers market. I've had at least 4 letters submitting from the people who do activities at farmers market. They'd sure like to see a pavilion at the farmers market, which could come under the heading of the rescue plan money. So I'll get that on the road. So that's all that I have. And at this time, I'd like to recognize our city attorney, Steve Orson, for any comments.
First of all, I'd like you all to know that we are doing a lot of work with the Codes Department regarding cleaning up of dilapidated property around town. Mr. Mercado is doing a wonderful job, and if you all know of anything we need to look at and to address, please let us know. Secondly, in conjunction with the motion to amend the agenda for tonight, because of some requests from members of this board, I've done some research that I'd like to relate to you now. And I'm going to read this because there are definitions in here that I think are important. At our last meeting, several members of the board have voiced concerns to me about matters which they have observed, and some members of the public have expressed to them, and have asked me as both the city ethics officer and the city attorney to address publicly and informally. As a result of that, I've conducted some research, consulted with the attorneys at MTAS, and reviewed the city code, and I have this report for you at this time. Ethics complaints are dealt with in Section 1710 of the Code of Ethics of the City Code. Ethics matters are not necessarily confined to those enumerated in our code, but can also relate to risk management issues which this board is bound to address, and some board members want to discuss them publicly, and they'll do that tonight. Ethics is defined as moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. The issues which concern some board members relate to the use of indecorous action by other board members in public meetings and perhaps in private dealings by board members and staff. Indecorous language is language that is not in keeping with good taste and propriety and is considered a violation of the provisions of our city code, subject to disciplinary action as set forth in Section 1207 of the code. A public exhibition of animosity or the use of demeaning language toward a staff member could be a breach of ethics. We are taught as children to criticize the actions taken by a person with whom we disagree, but not the person himself or herself. Expressed animosity or undue criticism of a person could create a hostile work environment for which the person who is the object of such activities and create serious risk management issues, which I, as city attorney, believe we should address in addition to the ethics issues. Although we have First Amendment rights, the freedom of speech and self-expression, all rights must be tempered with good judgment and exercised with civility. Views must be expressed without personal attacks on people. As public officials, we are held to an even higher standard because we represent everyone, regardless of their opinions and philosophies. We should respect the sensitivity of people. Hurtful words are one thing, but a representative of an employer, the city, castigating an employee in public is another. A course of conduct such as described above could only most likely be considered as a serious risk management issue, and I think we need to make note of that and address that tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Worson. City Administrator Goody.
Just a couple of items. I wanted to give you an update tonight. Our downtown signal project, you might remember we are working collaboratively. It's a Tullahoma Utilities Authority project, but we're participating in it to see all of the infrastructure upgraded at Grundy Street, Lincoln, and Lauderdale, all of those crossings across Jackson. What I wanted to update you on, though, is that, and I'm sure it won't surprise any of you, but due to lead times of materials and specifically the mast arms, our new expected start date is July 11th. We had initially hoped to start this spring, and it looks like it's going to be summer. Also, just wanted to share an upcoming date. This Thursday morning, I will be participating on a speaker panel at TAMCAR, which is the Tennessee Association of Municipal Clerks and Recorders, and in Murfreesboro. I think Ms. Golden will be in attendance as well, but they've asked for us to participate and share our experience using third-party plans review services. So looking forward to doing that. And that's my report tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Moody.
Thank you.
And I will remind you also of one other item I didn't bring up at the appropriate time. There will be an annual spring cleanup event held Saturday, May 14th. I believe that's going to start at 8 o'clock at Public Works. So everyone wear your reflective jackets. Come down to Public Works at 8 o'clock, May 14th. Look forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you. Okay, at this time we go to the consent agenda, and I'll just remind you I've not included the language that I normally read for that. That's in our policies and procedures, that these are items that are considered non-controversial and can be removed from the agenda when we adopt the agenda, but the agenda has been adopted. And with that, I'll read the caption for the consent agenda, which include the minutes from the April 11th, 2022 regular meeting and it includes the March financial report. Also, 22-56 is to accept delivery of the fiscal year audit reports. Item number 2257 is to approve the one-year renewal of an agreement with Household Alderman to perform the audit services of the City of Tullahoma for the Tullahoma City Schools, for the Tullahoma Industrial Board, Tullahoma Airport Authority, the Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation, in a total amount of $46,250. Item number 2258 is to approve the performance agreement with Vinyl Radio for a concert to be held at the annual Independence Day celebration. And 2259, an agreement with Pyro Shows for a professional fireworks display at the annual Independence Day celebration. Those are described in pages 36 and 39 of your agenda packet. And the final one is the item number 2260 to approve a license agreement for the 22nd annual All-American Soapbox Derby event on Saturday, May the 7th, 2022. Everyone can look forward to that. So do I hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Alderman Berry.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Adopt, and seconded by Blackwell.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to remove, have item number 22-59 removed for discussion. Down to new business.
We cannot do that at this time. The time to make those motions are when we are adopting the agenda. It has already been made. We moved on to the agenda.
This is the consent agenda. It's a different agenda.
We adopted the agenda, which included this consent agenda. But I will allow it, but that is what we will do. When we adopt the agenda, it will include the agenda. At this time, you would like to remove which item?
2259.
2259 for Pyro Shows?
Yes.
Okay, we'll remove that and put it at the end of our discussion under new business. Okay, do we approve the consent agenda as amended? No further discussion, vote green for yes and red for no. Passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business, of which there is none, and then with that, we'll move on to new business. Item number 2261, consider an appointment of citizen applicants to fill the vacancies for the Art Council of Tullahoma to serve for a new 3-year term ending August the 12th, 2024. Those names are on page 52. I'll read those names. They're Brandon Bradshaw, Alan Mays, and Colin Saran. We have 2 applicants that have submitted statements, and one spoke tonight. So I'd move that we appoint. Do I hear a motion to accept those 3 nominees? Alderman Berry.
Motion to accept all 3 nominees.
Motion made and seconded by Blanks. Okay, any discussion? No, green for yes and red for no. Good, we have 3 new board members on the Arts Council.
Was it 7? Okay.
Item number 2262, consider reappointments as presented on the Tullahoma Health, Education, and Housing Facilities Board. That's on page 69 of your packet. And we're getting there. Alderman Blackwell.
Move to approve.
And those are David Bond, Eugene London, and John McCord, and Lynn Seaborn. Alderman Berry.
I will second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I vote green for yes and red for no. And we have some new members on those boards. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have resolution number 1896, resolution to repeal resolution number 1701, which authorizes closure of a portion of the Wall Street alley. Those details are on page 71 of your agenda packet. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Alderman.
Second.
Yes, we have. You approved that. Motion from Black, seconded by Mr. Alderman Almacher. Any discussion? Yes, Alderman Blackwell.
As the downtown council person, I just wanted to let you know, I did check in with some of them as well to just make sure. One of the things, and I did email Mr. Wilkins and Ms. Moody, one of the things they did bring up, and they are on board with this, but they said maybe we could look into making it a one-way street to ensure that there's no collisions.
Still a one-way street.
I think it was always a
Okay, just making sure, because everybody, you go left, and some people pull in from the right, so some signage would be nice.
Also remind you that there is still a provision for the city to put up the bollards in case for a particular event that we might need to have the bollards for safety. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Yes, Alderman Berry.
One quick question. Love this. Are we able, does the board need to discuss adding no deliveries and no parking, or is that something the city can handle on its own?
I think the city can handle it on its own, but I'll defer to Ms. Moody.
I would like to. I think that we need to look at the whole signage, because I think to your point, I talked to our Public Works Director this morning, a lot of signage was removed because the bollards were in place. So we'll look at properly signing it.
We do address those issues in other places in our code now about parking and standing and things like that, but we might want to revisit that then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, vote green for yes and red for no. Bollards are removed by a vote of 7-0.
Take me home, Lord.
And Jimmy's like, now I'm done. Going out with a bang.
Bollards.
Another new business item, item number 1575, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance, City of Tullahoma, which is ordinance number 1392, by amending Article 5 general provisions, Section 505 landscaping requirements.
Mayor?
Those details are on 75.
I'd like to make a motion to approve but amend to the original proposal that was presented to the planning board that was presented by the city planner to every 50 feet rather than every 75 feet as it's written now.
First, we get a motion. We've got to get a motion. We got a motion.
You have to make a motion to approve and then a
We
motion
get a
to
motion and we
amend.
get an amendment. Got a motion to approve, a motion and a second. Okay, with that, is there any discussion? Now then, there is a discussion.
Yes.
Would like to make an amendment?
Yes, please. I would like to amend it back to its original writing that was presented to the codes board that said that there would be trees every 50 feet. And this was something that was proposed by our city senior planner.
Any further discussion?
Wait, do
Alderman
we
Berry.
need to get a second on the amendment?
You do need a second verse.
I guess we do need to get a second on it.
I'll second for discussion.
We've got a motion, an amendment, and a second. And discussion on the amendment. Alderman Berry.
I was going to make an opposite amendment to get rid of that entirely. And here's the reason is at 75 feet. I've heard comments this evening. I heard it at the planning commission meeting that it's only $250. It's only $500. It's only $1,900. And that's great when it's not your money. And I think we are in a climate now where I'll tell you right now that if I was to open an office in Tullahoma, I couldn't afford the extra $250, $500. And somebody will say, well, then you shouldn't open a business then. And somebody said that at a planning commission meeting. And I think that that's the wrong way to look at it. I don't believe that. I think first, if we want trees in places, maybe we go out and we talk to these businesses and we say, hey, are you interested in voluntarily doing this instead of the city coming in and saying, and I'm only going to speak to this motion, but there's a bigger picture here. I get it. I understand it. I understand the canopy and the beauty, but I don't agree with forcing that onto our businesses. If we want to force something, then present it as a tax and let the citizens comment that way.
Alderman Almacher.
I'll have to echo the sentiment. You should incentivize, not mandate. It is not your money that you're authorizing the expenditure of by this ordinance. Commercial businesses, we already have enough with our paving. There's one business in town that, they had to get a whole lot basically paved before they could open their doors. Everything like this, not only do you have the upfront costs and expenditures, but you have the maintenance costs and expenditures. And those sometimes, if a tree falls, a large tree, you're upwards of $1,000 per tree. I know I have roughly about $50,000 worth of damage right now of trees. And so while tree canopy is great and we want to incentivize that, we have to be mindful that it's all good until you're the one paying for it. So I will be opposing the amendment as well as the original movement.
Any further discussion? Alderman Blackwell.
Oh, well, and this is a question, I think, for Ms. Samaniego. Are we allowed to ask her a question? Because this is from...
You might ask
Okay.
the city administrator. She might defer to
So
Samaniego.
my comment is to be, and then if I'm wrong, she can clarify maybe, or y'all can clarify with me if I'm incorrect. But my understanding is that it is, the ordinance would affect the businesses that are changing uses. That's what I understood, and that typically that's less than 10 businesses a year. I like this idea of increasing our tree canopy. I also like the idea, though, that we do offer some financial help in other situations, and I was wondering if it would be possible for us to put aside $1,000 to $2,000 as a scholarship fund for those who are in need of help to purchasing those trees. For those smaller businesses that are our businesses, I think it was Mr. Bates that said something to the effect of keeping it like our people centric, and maybe if we could get to a place where we can compromise and find a way of funding that for those in need through a scholarship fund. I don't know if that's.
I think it might be helpful if you take your first question and address how are these changes applied to in development.
Okay, thank you, Mary Samaniego, Senior Planner. As the amendment is written, the change from 100 feet to 50 feet would now be applicable to any new construction, any addition to a building over 500 square feet, and any change of use.
Commercial.
For any non-residential or multifamily use.
Apartments even.
So right now, your code reads, as it's in your packet on page 79, under the applicability, landscaping provisions, this entire section of the code is only applicable to commercial or industrial projects that are new construction or an addition over 500 square feet. The changes would add any change of use, as well as any non-residential or multifamily project.
Which are duplexes.
And then I will defer to Ms. Moody about a funding source.
Sorry.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
If I may, I think it's pretty clear where I spend a lot of time and where I see a lot of people spend a lot of time is where there's canopy. And you spend money where it's pretty. It's just that simple. And these trees are doing a lot more than just beautifying the town. As Ms. Shockley mentioned earlier, it does help mitigate stormwater, which we have heard many, many, many times this year that is a concern. So this is just one pretty way to do that. And I think of all the places where you would want to have trees would be a duplex. There's There's a great discrepancy in income and the amount of canopy that certain people are allowed to have or have access to. This is very important.
Keeping in mind, this is only commercial or industrial.
And multifamily.
And multifamily.
Any non-residential.
Non-residential.
Any non-residential? Correct.
Except for duplex.
Alderman Hamaker.
Yeah, so this would apply to multifamily uses, which are residential and developments. You talk about discrepancy of income, but if you are an underprivileged individual trying to open a business, this is going to affect you greatly. And especially if you're trying to change use. If you have a daycare in your home, this is going to affect you. Again, create incentivizations. Don't create mandates. It's overreach of government. And I, too, would echo the sentiment of maybe there need to be some exemptions, further exemptions if you're going to implement this.
Any further discussion? Alderman Blanks.
I haven't discussed anything yet, but what's on the books now? What does it say? What do you have to do?
100 feet.
100 feet?
So under the current code, it's required that you have to do a buffer around your surrounding property lines, 1 tree for every 100 feet. The proposal is now, as amended by Ms. Dunn, 1 tree every 50 feet of your lot perimeter.
So what was the change, what, the 100 feet before she amended it, how was that changing what we already had?
So
75 before?
it
was 100.
So the code currently reads 100 feet. The tree board proposed, and we took this to the planning commission, they wanted to increase it to 1 every 50 feet. At the planning commission meeting, they amended that to 1 tree every 75 feet. Now Ms. Dunn wants to go back to 1 tree every 50 feet. So the change would be from the current code of 1 tree every 100 feet to 1 tree every 50 feet.
Okay, thank you.
With the amendment.
Correct.
It'd be 50.
Yes, but as presented before the amendment, 75 feet. Great. Alderman McGee.
I would just like to say that Ms. Shockley, she did give us some, several facts that are, that would be to the advantage of this, but I have to agree with Alderman Blackwell and Alderman Almacher. I think, like, especially for daycares and, if you're just starting out, I think if we can incentivize it or have some exemptions in place, I think that would help some of these smaller businesses, but, tree canopy is very helpful. It does beautify the city, and, these facts that lower electricity, animal control, strengthen the bond of neighbors, stormwater, and mental health. Those are things that we are dealing with today, so. Yeah, that's
If I may, Mayor, if we're talking about a 1/4 acre lot, we're talking about the difference of 1 tree. If we're talking about a daycare, we're talking about $250.
Which could be a lot for
That's a
someone just
lot.
starting out.
Just Alderman Blackwell, you're next.
I'm going to ask very specific questions. My first question is, what is the standard, and I was trying to find this online, I saw different places for different communities. Why was the proposal initially 50, and why did it change to 75 within the Planning Commission? Was it specifically because of cost, and was the 50 what is the industry standard, for lack of a better term?
May I address that, Ms.
Mayor, would you like to
Samaniego?
answer?
I've sat on the planning commission and heard these comments. First off, there is the issue of cost. If you go to 75 feet instead of 50 feet, you minimize the cost. That addresses that concern. Second concern was your willow oak, which is a giant canopy. When trees don't just stop growing in 25 years, they keep growing. The canopies begin to overlap if you get them too close together. The way you can minimize that, if we choose to do it, is to designate the type of tree that we planted instead of just allowing to plant Willow Oak every 50 feet, we could designate a small cherry tree to be every 50 feet. So that's a way to accommodate both sides of this equation, but that was why it went to 75 feet. It was sort of a compromise, but my point in that discussion was to avoid overlapping of canopies. That's why we went to 75 feet.
And then my other question that was, oh, sorry.
Just get
Okay,
on
I'm sorry.
normal.
So, not only are we telling people you gotta plant more trees, mandating them, we're now talking about potentially telling them specifically what trees they have to plant. We are trying to, we're keeping up with the Joneses in the sense of these landscape ordinances are starting to look like Brentwood. And we are not Brentwood. When we don't have the means to keep up with that, if you're an individual trying to start a business or build a duplex or develop a site, I mean, create incentivizations, but do not mandate this.
Alderman Blackwell.
My question was, can we create a scholarship fund for those who are, the thing I emailed about, is it feasible for us to set aside money for small businesses that are local businesses to be able to apply for so that they can purchase these trees and install them?
May I just clarify something?
Sorry.
Just so the board's aware of the facts. It's already in your tree landscaping ordinance mandates what types of trees can be planted. So they don't say it has to be an evergreen tree, it has to be this type of a shrub, it has to be a shade tree. You have to put the right type of tree in the right situation. You don't want to have a, if you're doing a screening, you want to do evergreen trees. So it does dictate not the specific species, but it does dictate already in the code what types of trees to plant and what the average size of planting is. As far as a funding source, I believe that we already have partnerships with sign permits, where we have a scholarship program where people can, starting new businesses, can get relief from the cost of sign permits.
And so could we do this in this situation as well, those sign permits is what I was thinking?
I think what she's saying, we don't currently have a program, but yes, a program could be created if there were funding.
Okay.
One of the things that I just wanted to bring up is that if you look at the memo, page 75 and 76 in your agenda packet, there are other proposed changes. The one that you're discussing, I think, is clearly the most controversial. It's what the Planning Commission spent the most time discussing as well. I just want to, I guess, offer this, if there are any other amendments that would be presented, possibly preserve some of these other elements, some of the other proposed changes, rather than throw all of them out if you're only objecting to one part.
Alderman Almager.
Do we need to vote on this motion before I make another motion to amend, or can I? Okay.
We have one amendment that we are. Any further discussion on the amendment to go back to eliminating the 75-foot requirement, which is on the, what's there now, to go back to the 50-foot requirement? Agreeing to approve going back to the 50 feet, red for keeping it 75. Red's to keep it at 75. Okay. So your motion failed, 76, 1 to 6. Okay, Alderman Berry.
Copy. I want to amend the motion on the floor by changing section 505.4. I got a copy for you. I won't read the whole thing, but to remove the proposed text changes that are presented, to strike all change of use, to strike non-residential or multifamily, and to strike any from the end of uses permitted in C1, C2, I2, and I2. So basically bringing that back to what it was.
It's just go to, okay.
I'm sorry, that's right here.
That goes to Rosemary.
I just want to take a look at it.
You share.
You can read it to us, Ms. Recorder.
Barry made a motion to amend by changing section 505-4 applicability to read, these landscape requirements shall apply to front, side, and rear yards for new buildings or additions over 500 square feet for all uses permitted in the C1, C2, I1, and I2 zoning districts contained in the zoning ordinance. Individual applicable sections are not required as determined by the senior planner in instances where they are not sufficient space in the public right-of-way or within the site due to the location of existing buildings and to require parking spaces. The portion of the downtown core as defined by Tullahoma 2040 Comprehensive Plan in the C1 are exempt from all standard sections of 505. So, removing the proposed text changes as presented, strike and all change of use, strikes non-residential or multifamily, and strikes any, the word any, from any uses permitted in the C1, C2, I1, and I2, any.
That would be a substitution. You can only strike one time in a, where, I'm looking for where we are, but I think.
On page 79, D.
You're 79? Okay, sorry.
Page 79, letter D, applicability, under that paragraph.
Everything it read except from individual applicable down.
Just D.
Just D.
I still think it's a substitution. It's still a form of amendment, but you're changing it so much that it's not just one place. So I think that I'm understanding what you're doing. But it's the same thing. I mean, he's offering that, so it's just the wording of it to substitute for.
I want him to draw on this for me so I understand.
We got an amendment, we don't have a second, do we?
I'll second.
We got an amendment and a second, and I don't, how many understand the amendment? Can you give me the Reader's Digest version?
Yeah, so if you take D, applicability, that
Okay.
first paragraph at the bottom, page 79.
Yes.
Go to the first red one, and all changes of use, cross that out. Skip over to for all, non-residential or multifamily, cross that out. Go to where it says C1, C2, I1, and I2, leave that in how it was, but strike the word any. So basically reverting this back to what it was, but leaving in what they did add about the individual sections are not required as determined, so it does give room
Okay.
there. So
Essentially making a substitution there. Okay. Okay, we do have a motion down a second, and I believe everyone generally understands the intent.
can I say why?
Yes.
And the reason is how it was, this opens it up to any zoning, and correct me if I'm wrong, any zone, period. If it's a non-residential use. So if I open a barber shop in my home, I believe that would open me up to landscaping requirements. Is that?
How does it affect conditional
San
use?
Diego.
Mary Samaniego, that would not apply because the primary use of that would be a single-family residential. So it would not apply to home-based businesses.
Primary use.
As far as non-residential uses, that would be churches in a residential zoning district, schools in a residential zoning district, large daycares where that's a business daycare for outside of the home, those types of uses is what that would capture.
I still don't like changing it to any. I don't like the existing landscaping code.
We have the amendment Any other comments on the amendment? Did we get a second on the amendment?
You did.
Hallmarker was a second. If there's no further discussion, vote green for approving the amendment and red for no. Your amendment passes 4-3. So the tree ordinance,
Yeah, I have a motion.
so the tree ordinance now goes back to what it was with that amendment attached. So we're keeping this 50-foot, keeping the 75-foot distance, but restricting where they go. Alderman Hallmarker.
I have I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance by adding exemptions for hardships and for anything that this zoning would encompass for businesses who expect to net less than $70,000 a year.
To add an exemption for hardships for any businesses that will net less than $70,000 per year.
Yes.
Okay, any second on that?
I'll second, because I have a question.
You have a second?
May I ask?
Sure. Eric asked.
The 75,000, is that an arbitrary? My concern would be, we don't have anything to base the threshold. I know where you're going, and I like that, but I don't know we have anything to base the threshold on there. $70,000 net still ain't enough, but I think because, what this does say is you can't open your doors until, so my problem is that initial, I can't open my doors if I don't have money to pay for these trees.
It would be, may I?
Please address the chair.
Yes, thank you. So, pretty much, the way I'm looking at it is, if you're grossing 35 or less per individual, and so I'm assuming, I'm thinking about married couples starting a new business. Basically, 35 for an individual, less than that, you're going to be considered about poverty status right now. So, 70 is just, I was like thinking married couple, 70,000 or less net profit, and it would be expected, if you could apply for the exemption, and if you expect that and that would have to be reevaluated, I would think, is what I would think is yearly. If you cross the threshold and you are, netting over that, then, this could be implemented. Plus, then you would have funds to do it. So, I think the exemptions for businesses trying to open might be a good thing. It's just where my mind is.
We have a motion for the exemption and a second. Any further discussion on that exemption? Alderman Dunn.
I think it would be very difficult for our codes department to be able to enforce such a rule.
Alderman Hallmark, Alderman McGee, Alderman Blackwell.
Alderman everything. I think I understand Alderman Almacher's point on this. I don't think that's the way. I still go back to putting a pot in that they can apply for it. I think it's really hard to put a number on where somebody should be at, because hardship can be in all different ways, right? So I think that honestly, from the discussion, what I would like to see in the end is to have that a separate discussion on how to help create a program for them.
You have a motion for an exemption, and we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, vote green for the amendment and red for against the amendment. That amendment fails 6-1, okay? And we're back to the original. Back to the original motion. Alderman Berry.
If nobody else has any. I'm not going to read that whole thing. But I would like to make a motion to amend the motion on the floor by striking the change, I guess a substitution.
If it's long enough, it's a substitution.
It's not super long, but, no, that's my statement for public record, is to strike the changes to section 505.d.2, the maintenance, removing the sentence that says, including street trees within the public right-of-way in the first sentence, I guess it is long, a substitution, and the entirety of the added fourth sentence, beginning with when a street tree dies, ... and ending with planting to ensure all plants are viable. So this is the section that puts the maintenance of the trees on the business owners. Sorry, I said D2. It's,
Page 80.
yeah.
I'll second.
Can I explain?
I'd like for the recorder to give us the substance of the substitution, if you would.
Sure, so if everyone turns to page 80 in your agenda, the letter D on the previous page is broken down to 1 and 2. Number 2, maintenance. Under that paragraph, he wishes to strike the red letters, including streets, trees within the public right-of-way, and then also to strike the red letters which begin with when a street tree dies or becomes a hazardous to the public, ending in planting to ensure all plants are viable. So striking those 2 red lettered sentences, or partial sentences. The amendment was made by Barry and seconded by Almacher.
Any discussion?
Can I explain the motion?
Please explain the motion. You're up first.
The very first, in the notes on this, on this one, it says that the reason for doing this is because it's created an economic and personnel strain on the limited city resources. And so what we are doing here is taking that economic strain and personnel strain from the city and placing that onto our small businesses. And I understand that it's not an entire city full of trees that we're asking these people to maintain, but if you've run a small business, then you know you barely have enough time to catch lunch, and so if we are going to, because this is not just trees that we plant, if there's a tree in your right of way, the city wants you to maintain it. You're responsible. If it falls, the city will replace it, right? Which, okay, great, that's good, but you're still required to replace it again. You're required to make sure it's watered. You're required to make sure that it doesn't die. There's code violations in there for those pieces. If the city doesn't have the money or manpower to do something, then we shouldn't be doing it, period. If we're dead set on doing it anyway, then we need to find alternative funding sources for it. But if we are dead set on doing it, then go to the people and say, we want trees in our right-of-way, the city's going to plant them, we need to raise your taxes so that we can pay for it, versus going to John Doe down the street, and instead of saying, we want your opinion on raising taxes, we just, as a board, sit here and pass that tax on you, for you, without any discussion.
Further discussion, Alderman Blackwell.
I don't think I'm going to support this amendment, and I think it's meeting the business owners halfway. I think we're saying we will remove it, which honestly is the bulk of, when something is dead and broken, the bulk of the expense comes from the removal of the said tree. Like cutting it, I mean, we're talking $1,500 sometimes for a tree to be removed. So I think we're meeting them at a good spot, and I think, you know, there is that entire keep pride in your space. I think that, you know, I don't think it's unreasonable then to ask for a $250 reinstallation of the tree that you were already expected to put per code. So I'm not going to support the amendment.
Any further discussion? Alderman Dunn.
Yes, I would like to agree with Alderman Blackwell. The lifetime of many of these trees can be 300 years. So the idea that you might have to remove one is as far as statistics goes, is very low.
Can I have some?
Alderman Berry, you're recognized.
I worked in offices downtown, and the trees that we had there weren't there for very long, and they died. I think just broken irrigation. The point of this here is this isn't just saying you're going to replace that tree. It's saying we're going to plant a tree, or you're going to plant a tree, and you're going to maintain it. And what we're sitting up here saying is we're meeting you halfway on your own money. Like, we're telling you, it's easy for us to sit up here and tell you how to spend your money. Instead of, we should be, if we want trees and we want better downtown and we want better appearances, then let's get out there and let's talk to these businesses and say, what can we do? Let's use streetscape money. Let's use ARPA money. Let's find something. But don't dig into their wallet and say, well, it's only $250.
Alderman Almacher.
So one of our ARP things is we're wanting to implement a streetscape plan. Many of those trees will be planted in front of businesses in the public right-of-way. What we're essentially saying is we're going to spend $1.2 million to put a bunch of trees out, but if they die, guess what? Congratulations, business, you're responsible. This is just inappropriate. And while I love the facts, actually, that Ms. Shockley gave, and I appreciate the tree canopy, you cannot mandate we're asking for a lawsuit here. Because also when that tree dies, and we keep telling somebody they have to replace it regardless of irrigation issues, we're going to get sued. Mark my words.
Okay, we've run out of time on the discussion of this. Unless there is a motion to extend discussion, we'll vote on the amendment. There's no motion to extend the time, so we'll vote on the amendment to the amendment passes 4-3. Okay, we're now back to the original motion with this amendment, and the original motion with this amendment includes trees at 75 feet.
Mayor, point of order. I just want to make sure that we are following, since we're all about the policies and procedures today, that we are following. Do we need a vote to continue the meeting at 7:30?
We do.
No.
No, it's 7:30. It's, point of order, adjourn. It is our Order of Business Section 3-0.
Or do we need a vote to continue it, to extend it?
If it was 7:30, we wouldn't need a vote to continue. We can go ahead with the vote on this amendment. We had to vote on the amendment. We're now back to voting on the original motion, which is to plant trees every 75 feet with the amendment that passed, that Alderman Berry presented. Okay? Green for yes and red for no.
What are we voting on?
Wait, are there any more amendments?
We're on the original.
Original motion with the amendments, correct?
With the amendment.
With the amendment, with Alderman Berry's amendment, and with trees every 75 feet.
Ready to go?
Vote green for yes and red for no.
I thought we.
Okay. With all the amendments that passed.
And that's all, okay.
With all the amendments.
There's two.
Okay.
Yes. 1 million amendments.
So that passes 5-2. Now then, I will entertain a motion to continue the board meeting tonight. Alderman Blackwell.
Motion to continue.
Motion to continue. Second. Alderman Berry. We have a motion to continue.
Can
All
we
in favor?
discuss this?
No.
Why not?
I mean, yes, I'm sure we can.
You can discuss it, absolutely.
Can I have the floor?
You have the floor, man.
This is my 13th year of doing this, and rarely did we push 8 o'clock until this last year or two. Let's try to be judicious. Let's try to study our packet, come in here, but, sometimes we can overkill. So think about that. Thank you.
Okay.
May I?
Yes, Alderman Barmaco.
With the things that are left are added. And I would appreciate the board, since it is 7:40, to continue those to the next meeting, if you would consider it.
That's part of the discussion. Any further discussion?
If I did not think that these items were crucial to tonight's meeting, I wouldn't have brought them up.
Vote green to continue the meeting and red to stop the meeting. And you do need a 2/3 vote.
Can you all make sure you voted?
Okay, now, say it again.
To
Green to
continue.
continue, red to stop.
Green to continue, red to stop.
All right.
I think I pushed it. No, I didn't. I thought I pushed it, I didn't. I'm not lit up.
Now there's Mayor.
She's not lit
Nor
up.
did Mayor Norris.
All right, let's start over.
Tell me when.
Motion, go ahead. Motion to continue.
I feel like I'm not good at looking.
We have 6 to continue and red to stop. So we will continue. Okay. And it's now 10 to 8, and we're down to all of the items that are on the agenda until we had some motions to change. And let's go to the item that was pulled from the consent agenda. And we'll go to that item first. The item on the consent agenda for pyro shows. Alderman Blackwood, you voted to move that.
No, Alderman Allmacher.
Excuse me, Alderman Allmacher, you made the motion to remove that from the consent agenda. And you want to make, you can present that motion now for discussion.
Yes, so I had one concern about the language. It's not the price tag. I understand that we're not increasing the cost of the pyro show. It's the same amount we're budgeting for that was created last year. But if you read the language in it, it talked about, well, we're still going to get a 20-minute show, but we're not going to get any of the big booms. And me personally, I mean, I don't want to spend any more. I don't want us to think about spending any more money, but I don't know that that's a good trade-off. And it was brought to my attention too. You know, I think there's a way in the long game, maybe not for this year, but for us to think about the pyro shows and the Independence Day celebration, partnering with our neighbor Manchester, since we talked about with the TAEDC and tourism and expansion and how we're all kind of tied together regionally. Perhaps we could come together and in the future do one show, but for this year, if we cannot spend any more money, in essence, people that I've talked to were like, I'd rather have a 8 to 10 minute really great show than a 20-minute show that's just blah. And that was my only concern, and that's the reason I brought it down.
Okay.
Mayor,
Alderman Blackwell.
well, I'll just be prepared to respond after their.
Alderman Blackwell.
I appreciate Alderman Allmacher's idea. I think as an event producer, I know that we're.
Do we have a second? No.
Oh, we don't.
We
have
don't have a motion or a second.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I would like to make them a motion to amend. Mayor, I'm sorry.
we
Make
did.
the
Make a motion first, and then
Yeah, we need to.
amend.
Okay, we have
Oh, okay.
motion.
Then I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't make the motion.
well, we do have,
Question?
the motion for the consent agenda was to approve the agreement for the pyro shows, page 39 in your packet. So we got a motion on the floor for that amendment.
don't
No, we
yet.
don't.
We can get an
We
amendment.
don't.
We don't have a motion.
We don't have.
I'm asking to get a motion on the floor is what I'm asking. Alderman Blackwell.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. We have a second from Alderman Berry. In discussion. Now we have the discussion. And that discussion will entail you wish to amend?
Yes, I wish to amend in order to consider a shorter fireworks show, but with a bigger bang. Yes.
That's the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment?
Mayor, if I could, I just wanted to share with this board that annually we have budgeted for many years $50,000 for this event. and then we seek sponsorships. And with the help of our sponsors, sometimes we've been able to spend more than that for the fireworks show. But what's happened is every year, fireworks have gotten more expensive. And I believe I would like to invite our Parks Director, Dave Anderson, who's been negotiating this with pyro shows, to come up. Each year, we've tried to find a way, just as you're saying, to not, to still have a spectacular fireworks show, have a full program, but find ways to maybe shave a little bit of cost and expense off of it. And share with me what you shared about bringing in sand and fireworks.
So I did speak with Travis Forsyth, who's the sales rep for pyro shows. What we had taken out were the 8-inch shells and replaced them with 6-inch shells. The cost of last year's program would be about $5,000 more this year than it was last year. And that is why we said we're not going to do that. We're going to keep with the same budget. The other issue that we had, that when we were discussing the 8-inch shells, is that we have to bring in an additional truckload of sand just for those 8-inch shells. We also have a fallout radius of 640 feet instead of under 500. So we have to have some of the houses that are surrounding the event to make sure that they are cleared. So when we were discussing different options, we felt like as far as safety and as far as just still providing the time frame of a good show, that removing those 8-inch shells was the best option for us to do. So that was the reasoning behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
What I would propose, and what I have proposed to staff, is that if we can continue to possibly engage some new sponsors or continue to grow our sponsorships, I think that we can look at bringing some of those elements back, or we'll be able to better address the increasing cost of fireworks year to year and keep this program the same.
Further discussion?
Is this on the amendment?
We haven't gotten a
No,
second
this
on
is-
the amendment yet.
No, we've not gotten a second on the amendment at this point, so is there a second on the amendment? Hearing no second on the amendment, Phil. Okay, we'll go back to the original. Item number 2259, we have a motion and a second on that. Vote green for approval, red for no. And that passes 7-0. And now we'll go to the items, the additional items that were presented at the beginning of the adopting the agenda packet. We're giving our city recorder a workout tonight. The first item that we have is an item of discussion. Would you care to read that motion made by Alderman Dunn?
Motion made by Alderman Dunn, seconded by Berry. A motion to discuss the disciplinary actions for Alderman Almacher's actions on April 11th during a Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, and a executive session on February 28th.
Point of order.
That's Alderman Dunn's motion, and you have the floor to present the motion.
Sure. At our last Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting on April 11th, I watched Alderman Almacher call our employee an insulated bureaucrat.
Oh, wait, you needed a second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there needs to be a second.
You need a second.
Yes. Okay.
To discuss.
So this is a discussion?
Yes.
Is this a motion or is this a discussion?
This is a motion. This is her
It's a
motion.
motion to discuss. Okay, you need a second.
Need a second? Alderman Berry,
I'll second.
have a second. Okay, it's your motion, you have an opportunity
She's
to
talking about two
present.
separate events. One of them is an executive session that is confidential and privileged. We cannot discuss that publicly.
Sure. I'll just speak to your actions then. At our last Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting on April 11th, I watched Alderman Amacher call our employee an insulated bureaucrat. Her tone of voice and choice of words were demeaning and uncalled for.
Charging her with things.
During an executive session meeting on February 28th, I watched Alderman Amacher jump up, jab her finger in our city administrator's
That's
face,
executive
and
session.
scream, "You are my employee,
Point of order,
and
Mayor.
I am your employer."
Point of
Hold
order,
on.
Mayor.
At this point, I'm going to defer to our city attorney and ask him for the appropriateness of addressing something that came up in executive session.
It's my opinion that as long as the matter that came up in the executive session was not the purpose of the meeting, which was different from that it would be appropriate to bring it up.
Would you say that again, please?
The purpose of the executive session was different from the matter that Mrs. Dunn is addressing tonight.
I disagree. The purpose of the executive session was to discuss me that night as well.
May I continue, Mayor?
The attorney has given us permission to continue the discussion.
Okay.
Alderman Amacher's tone was dehumanizing and cruel. I do not condone the actions taken by Alderman Amacher against city employees. Repeated actions like these create a hostile work environment and invites litigation to both Alderman Amacher and to this board if we choose not to address them. I dismiss her actions as unbecoming of the position of alderman.
That's your comment, you have a proposal, and you have a second, and you have initiated the discussion. Any further discussion?
I guess now I can speak, correct?
Alderman Amacher.
Okay, this is completely detracted from business this evening. And, you know, it's really interesting to be bullied and then be called a bully. Insulated bureaucrat is not an insult. It's saying that she's not an elected official, which means that we are held accountable for her actions. That was not an insult. It was and is a statement of fact. Nor did I mean it indecorously or as an insult. So I believe that my intention should matter, as well as I'm sorry, but our attorney is absolutely incorrect. Executive sessions are completely privileged, and anything discussed behind those walls are completely privileged. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is my understanding.
So,
But I'm not-
because that was just brought up, you have just invited risk management issues. Furthermore, to be called and told by another board member at the end of the last meeting to F off and called an idiot, yet I'm called in here tonight and you add this agenda? You add this to the agenda? I am sick and tired of the
Point of
double
order,
standards.
she should be
I am-
addressing
this
the
is-
mayor.
I am speaking to
Address
this.
the mayor, please.
This is absolutely inappropriate and is bullying, and I would like for it to stop.
Any further discussion? This was for the motion. Actually, there's no, this was to discuss, is what the subject was. Alderman Blanks.
The tongue is a mighty rudder. It can turn a ship whichever way. To try to turn this and say you weren't bullying is gaslighting. I probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, admonished this board to be careful what you say, how you act, how you speak. We have not heeded that advice. This board is now out in the wilderness of Zion. We're like the children of Israel out in the desert. How many years is it going to be that we're going to do this? Woe to this board for our actions. Woe to this board for letting it happen. Is this example that we set? If we lose a good employee, who wouldn't want to come work in the city of Tullahoma when they have to sit up here and listen to this crap? Woe to this city if we let this happen. Be careful what you say and how you say it. I've said that since I've been up here. I will still say that. I apologize for my tone tonight. I'm tired of this. My hair's turning gray. I'm a lame duck alderman. We cannot continue the way that this is going and it be good for the city of Tullahoma. If we're worried about just what's up here, that's not what's good for the citizens of this community. If we want to be vibrant, if we want to attract business, if we want to grow and get all these things done that we want to do, we have to be the examples. And we haven't been. I haven't been. A lot of us up here could do a lot better. I'm guilty. There's other guilty parties here too. So let's do better. This is sort of pitiful. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
I don't think that it's actually ever been put on, agreed to discuss.
Yes, it was.
It was? You
Yes.
did, okay.
Yes. We had a motion and a second, and the motion was to discuss, and we have discussed.
And then she,
Are we discussing?
Is there any further discussion? There's no action to take other than the discussion that you have initiated. Yes, you have something else to discuss?
I think one of the things that Mr. Worsham said in that was something I will say I asked about, I was concerned about. As a manager, someone who manages people, it is very important to me to treat them respectfully, to make sure that they are built up, to let them know when I disagree with them, but to do it in a professional manner. I task myself that every day. My concern a few weeks ago, I was going to chat with you about one-on-one too. I've been out of town, apologies. But my concern has been the fact that I don't want us to lose a staff member because she's being treated poorly sometimes up here. And I, as a professional, don't feel comfortable seeing that happen. I feel like we, as professionals, risk our careers by being in some ways complicit as it's happening. And I was looking for guidance to how to deal with the situation when I am uncomfortable with how an employee who works for our city, who reports to our board, is being treated inappropriately by one of my colleagues. And I didn't know what to do. I did reach out to Mr. Worsham because I don't want to risk my professional credibility in this, and I don't think any of us want to, nor do we want to risk our community's support and our community's trust in our board. It has been a concern of mine for a while, and I just want to make sure that we are not putting ourselves at risk.
Any further discussion on this? Alderman Allmark.
As the managers, essentially, of the city, in the sense that we are her manager, we are her employer as a board, it is incumbent upon us to have the hard conversations and to do so, and I'm very direct. It is part of the reason that I got elected. People like that I'm direct. If you put me in a courtroom, I'm not going to stand out and be so brash seeming as sitting on this board with people who don't have the same background as me. You also need to understand that there is that difference as well. Indecorous language, indecorous actions, these are very subjective terminology. What is indecorous or offensive to one may not be to another. I actually addressed this on a live. It is never my intent to disrespect you, Miss Moody. But it is my intent to serve as a check and a balance on the powers of the administration of this city. And that is why we work for the citizens We do not work for the city because we are to be a check on that power, which means holding Miss Moody accountable since she is our one and only employee. And I will not apologize for doing that.
Mayor, if I may. Holding someone accountable and abusing that person in public are two very different things.
Hold on, Barry.
We've all kind of talked about how we feel about it up here, and I won't put anybody on the spot, but I think that what matters is, regardless of our intent, how we make our employee feel. And it is, I'm crass at times as well. And I'm very direct at times as well. And having been in a managerial position with hundreds of people, you have to listen to your employees, and without political correctness and all this, you do have to understand how your words, how your actions, how that affects them, and how it does make someone feel. Because if Miss Moody, Administrator Moody, had talked to some employees and called one of them an insulated bureaucrat, and I recognize that she's not the board of mayor and alderman, but she is their boss, right? They don't work for us, but we're her boss. I guarantee you that this board would have a problem with how she spoke to that person. And I know that has been brought up before as one of the accountability items. And I think that we are all, I recognize that there is an issue. I hope that this issue can be handled first by maybe sitting down one-on-one and trying to figure that out. Something that I often did was one-on-ones with all of my employees. What are 3 ways I can help your career? What are 3 ways that I can improve myself? And how can I improve our relationship? And so maybe that is something that can be handled individually, one-on-one, but I do believe we need to hold the administrator accountable, right? But there's a way to do that. We have evaluations, and it's not barking at somebody. What I would like to see, this is a discussion, there's nothing, I'd like to see this issue resolved one-on-one, and have that conversation, because we cannot resolve that issue. And as far as in our toolbox of things to do, we have a censure, right? Because she is elected. We are all elected, right? And so short of committing a crime or very few things, there's nothing that we can do. So I think trying to work on that relationship, recognizing that even though the intent wasn't there to make somebody feel bad, that there is obviously an issue. And I think if that can't get resolved, then we come back together as a group. But I think step number 1 is, even though a relationship may not be able to be repaired, at least try to work together to find a path forward, whatever that looks like. And I do think that at any time, because we are the board, that and you work for us, that when there is an issue, you don't need to feel, and I'm not saying you are, but the administrator does not need to feel as though they cannot come to us and address that issue. But I also do not want to be, by knowing things are happening and not doing anything, that makes us just as culpable. Right. But there is also a way to handle things and a way to do things. And I think that, as well as relationships here, maybe we need to take a trip to Dave & Buster's or something as a board and try to repair. I don't even know if they're open. But I think that we need to do some bridge building here amongst ourselves as well, because I think the rifts up here affect down below and even down below that level. And that's it. Sorry.
Point of order, 3.2, study session agenda. No study session may extend past 8 p.m. I have children to get home to, Mr. Mayor. I would like to call the rule.
This isn't a study session.
We have a vote, and we can, you call for invoking the rules, and we can, we'll entertain a motion to continue. Y'all entertain a motion to continue.
Point of order, Mayor. This is part of the regular agenda, and it's not a study session. We have already voted to extend the rules.
Okay, that's fact.
Then we can't start the study session. Understood?
It's not a study session.
I will.
Alderman McGee.
Okay, I would just like to say that as aldermen, we are held to a higher standard. I think someone said that earlier. And I think it's safe for me to say this now. It was out of order earlier. I own that, but I think there's too many personal agendas, and it's hindering us, it's distracting us from properly taking care of the business of the citizens and the city. As Alderman Blackwell said, you know, the citizens, we're trying to regain the trust of the city and the citizens. This type of stuff keeps escalating each meeting, and I can only speak for me. I don't like being associated with foolishness because it's very important to me of how I carry myself, how I speak to people. Being in management, upper management, there's a way that you can talk to your employees. I'm not going, as a boss or as a member of management, we're really servant leaders to those who are under us. It is not our job to talk demeaning to them, to validate us for whatever reason, I don't know, but I'm like, Mayor Pro Tem Blanks, I'm so sick of this. I enjoy being an alderman. I know the good comes with the bad, but this is just a little too much. This is all I hear when the community or the citizens come to me is how ridiculous we look, we act, and we're not really taking care of city businesses or the citizens' concerns. It's embarrassing. And I just wanted to stop. If we have to do a team building exercise, let's do it. Let's put aside all these personal agendas, because we have no personal agendas. We're here, we work for the city, we're appointed by the citizens. We can't have any personal agendas. We're here to do what's best for them and what's best for our city. So I just want this to hurry up and stop, because it's getting on my nerves.
If I might offer an opinion, I don't think we'll resolve issues that have been raised tonight around this table. Further in my opinion, I have observed that Ms. Moody's door has been open to any alderman at any time. So if there is an issue that anyone cares to make with Ms. Moody, I think she would welcome the opportunity to sit and talk with you. So please avail yourselves of that opportunity to air anything that might seem out, any issues like have been brought up tonight. Those can be addressed personal discussions. Is there any further discussion? This was an item to discuss. We have discussed. Is there no further discussion?
The only thing I'd like to add is this is the last time I will be raising this issue without either looking towards a censure or a fine. We have to be accountable.
Any further discussion? If not, we do have another item that I'll ask the city recorder to read the motion for the item number 2.
Item number 2 is to discuss, no, not to discuss, to invoke. Evoke? Invoke. Invoke. invoke Title I, Chapter 2, Section 210.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, this board does not have authority to invoke that against a sitting board member that is elected by the individuals. This is not a city board.
That was what I was questioning.
I would like to ask the Mayor, City Attorney Washington, do you have a copy of that, of your, of item 210?
Title I, Chapter 2, Section
Chapter
210.
two.
Hand that out to
What's
people?
that one?
I don't know, I have no idea what she's talking about.
Do you want me to hand this to him?
What section is that?
She just handed this to me too.
On investigation.
'Cause I'm walking over here.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that you
Oh.
proceed with caution, given my rights.
Okay.
Oh.
Pardon me a minute, I wasn't familiar with this, I need to read it.
Roberts would demand that you would have, Roberts would demand that you would have an investigation before you could invoke.
I do not believe that this would apply in this case, because I don't think that we're investigating any of the city's institutions, boards, commissions, or activities. However, I do think that there are other provisions in our city code that would result in the same conclusion. In section 1-710 of the city code, especially 1-711 violations, if an elected official or appointed member of a separate municipal board, commission, committee, authority, corporation, or other instrumentality, this is an elected official, who violates any provision of this chapter, and this is the chapter about ethics, is subject to punishment as provided by the municipal's charter or the applicable law, and in addition, is subject to censure by the governing body. So I think that if this board were to find that someone had violated the provisions regarding ethics, they would be subject to censure.
This is actually not to do with ethics. This was not an investigation.
The other thing that might be applicable is if this board were to find that someone was guilty of indecorous act and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, indecorous or indecorous language under 1-702 special rules, any member using profane or indecorous language in a board meeting shall be fined $50. Those are the only two kinds of things that might be applicable. I don't think that an investigation would be applicable on this other subject.
Alderman, Mayor, could I ask one other question?
Yes.
From our parliamentarian.
Of me.
From her, okay.
From me. That was the way I read it, but in Robert's Rules of Order, there is procedure that you must go through according to this. And I don't, since I'm not an attorney and cannot give an attorney's opinion, my question is, before any of this takes place, do you not have some sort of investigation or fact-finding before you ever bring any charges against anyone, specifically naming? That is a great concern to me as a parliamentarian. But because certain steps have to go through to get to that point where you then would come here and you could make the two motions that I find at this point are out of order.
Point of order, Mayor, should we be in an executive
Yes,
we absolutely
executive
should be.
session?
Yes, you should have been.
This entire time for both.
I have looked at that in a very cursory manner in Robert's Rules of Order. I do believe, but I think probably we ought to defer action on that until I can review it more carefully, and you too, because I do think that if the offense is in the presence of the body, they can go ahead and have a censure without a trial. And I think that our rules here would allow that if we consider it to be an ethical violation. Now, this body would have to determine whether or not there was some sort of violation of our code of ethics.
that's
So,
where I'm going,
now, we wouldn't have to have a trial because this is something that took place before this board. But someone said they didn't think it was an ethics issue, so that's beside the point. I just wrote you what I thought might be ethical issues. If the board doesn't find this an ethical issue, then no, we could not take that action, in my opinion.
In your opinion, then the motion that we have is not in order?
That's correct, yes, sir.
That's correct. The motion's not in order, so ruled. There being no other business to come before the board tonight, without objection, we'll be adjourned. We'll go quickly into the beer board meeting. We have one item that's consent agenda. Any comments from the public on the beer board? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the agenda, item number BB 10.
Blackwell, approve.
Blackwell approves, Perry second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, vote green, red for no. And that's approved 6-0. Beer board.
7. Sorry.
Since there's no other business on the beer board, without objection, will be adjourned. Study session, item number 1, Mayor Pro Tem Blank's request to discuss the proposed naming of Rock Creek